Hi, my name is Malu Wilder. I am at August Wildfire 2016. I performed a piece to Work Song by Hosier at our showcase last night.
Excellent. Um, Give us some actionable practice techniques or ways to come up with choreography. You've run through this idea before, whatever your updated version of that is.
Sure. My my most important process for choreography is picking a song that I absolutely love, because the first thing that I do is spend about 3 to 4 hours listening to it ad nauseum throughout my day. Some of that will be spent just sitting with my computer and taking notes. A lot of it will be spent in transit. Movement helps me a lot, so from job to job or on the train. And the first step for me is always to envision the most important 3 to 5 points within the piece that I feel really express what I'm trying to get across, and from there it kind of builds itself. So it's really not done linearly. In this case, for this piece, it was the chorus, the falling flat on my face and crawling and picking myself up. And then within that, this piece was actually really quite easy to write. It wrote itself because it's so lyrical, and most of the choreography was based upon lyrical cues. In the past, I've done a lot of instrumental work, and that's a lot more difficult to choreograph because, especially in the notation process, when I'm writing it down, I have to pick 3 to 5 second blocks and actually notate the time as I go. But for the Hosier piece, I was able to just copy and paste the lyrics into a document and go straight down for where my cues are. Beyond that, the second part of the process is sort of letting all of that go, or at least most of it, because typically things that work in my mind don't actually work physically. It'll be either the timing's off, I'm out of breath for that portion, I'm not actually able to do 16 backflips in a row, something like that. So what I see at first is not always what actually translates. The process is usually listen, feel, write those cues, hash the whole thing out, and then decide what needs to be ditched. And that ditching process is really quite frustrating. But in the end, I'd say as advice for people who are doing their best to begin choreographing is find a song that really makes you see at least 3 to 5 cues. So that when you're listening to it, oh, I would definitely do this. And then do your best to get an objective experience of yourself. So we're all really good at knowing what it would feel like to spin something, but being able to step outside yourself and say, oh, what would it look like if I were doing this? And that largely comes from a lot of mirror work or a lot of video, watching yourself on video a whole lot.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Thank you. Things that you wish you knew before you began this process, or before you got on this stage, or any part of that, and or something unexpected, good, positive, neutral, something that you learned from that would be helpful.
One thing that I didn't plan for at all this time, and I usually do, is the rock in the center of our stage. I think it's important to use the rock. It's there, and avoiding it isn't really possible. So by the time I got here, in fact, the day before I left, one of my closest friends, Frank Hatzis, was saying, oh, this one cue would be perfect on the rock. And I actually didn't I missed that cue on stage, which was fine, but I did end up jumping off of the rock a few times. I wish I had planned a little bit more for the venue. I also planned, quite a few. There were 7 full stage falls in the entire piece. So I didn't quite plan for the gravel of the stage either. I trained the piece in the Boston Arboretum with really nice thick grass, and that's not quite the way this stage translates. But it was okay. I have a few cuts and bruises. My chest is a little beat up and got one on my hand, but all for the art. I wish I had planned a little bit more for the stage. That said, though, I wouldn't have taken out any of the falls. They were absolutely necessary for the piece to come across. I also changed my mind, as I often do, a week out from my music. Do you mind if I mention this?
Go ahead.
It's a funny side note. So, Damien Escobar, who was my girlfriend brought to my attention, is a beautiful, beautiful violinist, and he did a cover of Nico and Vince, Am I Wrong? I had originally chosen that piece of music and wrote detail by detail, 3 to 5 seconds, choreography that I may bring to you guys in May. It's a piece I'm quite happy with. The day of Frank Hatzis' arrival to my house, where he stayed for a week before we left, I changed my mind. I had been hunting for Hosier Work Song. I'd heard it, and I didn't know what it was called, and I'd been hunting, and I finally found it. I said, this really is reminiscent of where I am in my life right now. It expresses a lot about how I'm feeling. I'm going to use this. So Frank lands at my house, and I play him my music, and he's like, oh, it's dramatic, it's wonderful. And I say, hey, man, let me hear yours. And on comes the Nico and Vince, not the remix violin piece that I had chosen, but the original. Turns out we would have been using the exact same piece of music. So in this case, I'm glad that I made the diva choice to change my piece a week out. But it's typically better to have more than a week to prepare for these things, and maybe in the future, probably not, but maybe in the future I won't change my mind out a week out again and drive the production crew crazy like I typically do. Yeah.
Excellent. Any place where we can find out more information about you, or I have a feeling that I know the resource that you'll recommend, but any resources that you would recommend for us?
Sure. The Rope Dart Academy YouTube channel can be found at rdaropedarts.com. It contains mine, but also several other fantastic rope dart performers' pieces, tutorials, lessons on movement, and also competition. Basically, general. If you're looking to figure out how to fit rope dart into your art, it's a fantastic resource. Also, ropedarts.com is a fantastic place to find more information about rope dart movement in general. I would also say take a look at Rachel Blue. She's a fantastic inspiration for me. Dresden Blue, Rachel Blue. Find her on YouTube. I'm not sure off the top of my head what her YouTube channel is, but she is one of the most fantastic contemporary dance rope dartists in the world, as far as I'm concerned.
Good story. Questions? Comments? Concerns? Hoots? Howls?
You mentioned that the music you chose related to events in your life and how you were feeling about them. This piece it seemed personal and very charged with emotion. Would you be willing to share with us some of what that was that went into this piece, that it was about for you?
Some, sure. So the question was that I had mentioned the piece of music really relating to my position in life right now, and the question pertains to the emotion involved. I've been recreating myself in a lot of different ways over the course of this summer, and there's a lot in me of feeling as if I've fallen quite a bit from what I thought I wanted to be, and then picked myself back up several times. I've also got a really fantastic partner in my life that the piece really was inspired by as well, and listening to the music originally brought a lot of that feeling up of this is sort of worth whatever work it would take, and also doesn't need a lot of work at the same time, comes very, very naturally. So it's a little bit of both, to answer that question of just like intensely personal, just me, feeling of falling and getting back up, but also this feeling of it touched me in my current place in my relationship to my partner right now. Yeah.